Great, super. My name is Tim Whiteduck. I'm Director of Technologies for the First Nations Education Council, based in Quebec City, Wendake First Nation. I'd like to acknowledge the Member 2 First Nation for hosting us here today. I prepared some questions, but I'm really not in any order at this point, but I'm going to get to sort of the big question that everybody has, and I'll reach out to our guest speakers here, and to my left is Wayne Slipperjack from
Moderator First Nation in Ontario.
Okay, I'll ask you to grab a microphone. Easier.
Hello. Hey, I'm Wayne Slipperjack. I'm from Murdoch First Nation in Northern Ontario. I live in Thunder Bay, Ontario, and getting here yesterday was such a pain in the we flew by here because of the fog and ended up in Halifax, and we attempted again, 2 attempts to land yesterday, and the second one we touched down, and it was like about 10 o'clock in the evening by that time, and I woke up very early yesterday just to catch a flight in Thunder Bay at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I barely got any sleep, so you'll have to excuse me if you see me falling asleep up here this morning.
All right, thank you. Jesse?
All right, good morning. My name is Jesse Fiddler from Sandy Lake First Nation. It's a neighboring community close to the Abmatunk First Nation in northwestern Ontario. Our communities are rival hockey teams, so we always battle against each other at the local tournaments. And I work with KNET, the Kakana Network, which is part of the Kiwetinook Okmakanak Tribal Council.
All right, Wayne and I were on the same plane, so we'll cover for each other today. Sharaz Khan, I'm a professor at the University of Calgary in information technology. I've been working with First Nations communities for probably about 12 to 13 years.
Bill Murdoch, Executive Director with Clear Sky Connections. Home community is Norway House Cree Nation in Manitoba. So our mandate in our project is to connect the First Nation communities in Manitoba with fiber for connectivity. And also under that mandate is the education and training piece to bring awareness to leadership on the needs and the benefits of connectivity in communities.
Thank you, Bill. So our job this morning is to try to explain how we could recommend a way to engage First Nations leadership in broadband connectivity. Well, we all have a story to tell here, so I'm going to reach out to, the way I'm going to try to do it this morning is I'm just going to do a randomly selected role, so don't be surprised, there's no order here. So a question to Jesse. How can we address barriers to broadband access in remote Indigenous communities?
All right. So, yeah, the barriers that we have in very remote communities, one is the isolation. So there's not a lot of land infrastructure that goes to our remote communities. Most of them are fly-in, and very limited land-based infrastructure for a lot of them. So a lot of communities, remote communities, rely on satellite infrastructure, but the ones that do have the land-based infrastructure, there is some barriers for getting the infrastructure into place, which is one big one, just because it's so remote, the distances are really vast, and it's very cost prohibitive. So it's very expensive in order to build fiber to very remote communities. And Wayne can speak on that. I'll let him talk about his project. So it's very expensive to do that, and it's in our region, the geography is just a lot of forests, lakes, swamps, rivers. So it's really hard to build infrastructure compared to, say, in the prairies or anywhere else where it's very simple to build a road and infrastructure. So that's one of the barriers is actually the cost of it, the geography, and then the other one is financing it. It's very expensive. So it can't be done through the business model, like a typical telecom business model. So it has to be funded by some sort of federal or provincial agency that, its mandate is to have connectivity for all people.
Wayne, did you want to expand on, tell your story about what are the barriers?
Okay, our project is Rapid Links Telecommunications. We started our project in 2013, 2014 with a broadband working group. And one of our mandates from the Matawa chiefs was to get the internet into our communities. We knew it was out there. What we've had before was C-band connections through KNET, and my friend here, Jesse, is well aware of that. But we needed something more reliable, more faster in our communities. And we realized that in our communities, we are so far apart, and there's just so much, so much that planning that we had to do way back in 2013, 2014. And when the build started, we needed to talk with our chiefs too, and to let them know this is where we're at, this is what our plan is. And although some chiefs were adamant, like, what is this going to be good for us, or they just had all kinds of questions. And so we had a group of people from each of the communities represented, and go back to our chief and councils and let them know this is where we're at, this is what we're doing. And like I said, we realized this is going to be a tough project. We didn't get funded until 2018 for our project here. All the things that we had to do, like the engineering, the design, and everything. And we knew that closer to the south that we start, it was just going to be bog and swamp. As we get further up north, it was going to be both swamp, what do you call that? Very, very rocky terrain, and which made it very difficult. We didn't start our construction until 2020. And each time we had to update our chiefs and let them know this is where we're at. And there are some chiefs that were very excited, and there were some that were very, questioning whether we should do this. I don't know how we got them excited, but we somehow got them excited. And I can't speak for each of our representatives from the communities on what they did, but we are about 60% complete with the backhaul, and we still got quite a bit to do. As a matter of fact, we have phase 1, which is the northern remote communities, and phase 2, which is the road access communities to the south of us. So our what do you call it? Tribal council consists of 9 communities, 5 which are remote, and 4 are road accessible. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. My next question is to Bill. This is more on the strategy. What strategies can be employed to increase awareness and understanding of the importance of broadband among Indigenous leadership?
Well, the awareness piece is the education and training and defining what the need is. I'll start with part of the story of how Clear Sky was created. So in Manitoba, there's the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. We have 63 First Nation communities. Under AMC, the health portfolio, at the time, the project was to deploy electronic medical records into the communities. So there was a need for bandwidth to support EMR systems. A feasibility study was completed. After the feasibility study was done, the only viable option was to run fiber everywhere. Because fiber's the only technology that provides enough bandwidth to support EMR. Then the health department separated from AMC to form Finism. The project moved with it because it was still to get bandwidth for electronic medical records. Then the project became large enough. We separated from health to form Clear Sky to access grant funds to build the infrastructure to support electronic medical records and obviously the need for fiber. But along with the fiber, everybody associates it with internet. That's where they gravitate towards. But with fiber, I compare it like a road. So we're essentially building the equivalent of a 48-lane paved highway to these communities. Internet is just one piece of traffic that can go over that road. So you have internet, cell service, EMR, emergency communications, telephone, cell service, other voice. That's just all traffic that goes over the fiber. It's regardless of if it's internet traffic or just data traffic. When it hits the fiber, it's just ones and zeros. So trying to provide that awareness to the communities that building fiber for the internet, that's where the grant funds are. That's the funds that are available now. This is the immediate benefit. Distance education for the youth, access to online banking, because many of these remote communities simply don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the brick and mortar infrastructure in the community to access various, like online banking or other commercial needs. Even running businesses online or working from home. Because right now under Clear Sky, we actually have 8 staff. I'm really the only one that works out of the office. It's usually half time. I usually work in the morning from home and I go to the office the afternoon. Pretty much everybody else works from home. Actually, 6 of the staff do not even live in the same city where our office is. They all work remotely. So having access to the technology and that remote communication and being able to really work from anywhere as long as you have connectivity is really a game changer for the talent that we can acquire that can do the work for the community. And they don't have to be in the community to do the work. They can choose to be in the community to do the work and still work for outside organizations. So that's providing that awareness and training to the leadership of internet is just a piece of it, but there's all these other benefits that we can't really define at this point. But until you have the technology in place and then to realize those benefits as you adopt the technology and become familiar with it, then that's when they can start to see the benefit. But it has to be a forward thinking. It's not near term. It's not immediate term. Because as mentioned, it does take a long time to plan and build the infrastructure. Most of the effort is actually in the planning piece. If you think about computer coding, it's about 85% of the time is spent on planning and 15% spent on coding. It's very similar with infrastructure. You could spend years on designing and planning. Then when it comes to actually building the infrastructure, they could average between 5 and 10 kilometers a day. But that's when they actually get moving. If the plans are correct and the financing's in place and the budgets and you have the project management and you have all those other pieces to make sure the project runs smoothly. So again, it's providing that. I'm trying not to get in the weeds too much, which I know I tend to do. I've had the discussion this morning. But provide that education and awareness and I guess the desire for having the connectivity in the community. Sharaz, you want to add anything?
Oh, please, yeah, go ahead.
So I just want to take a little bit of a different stance on this. So I'm just going to stand with all the lights shining here. I just want to take a quick survey. Just raise your hand. How many have broadband access today? How many communities have broadband access today? Could you just raise your hand? Okay, so half the room. Okay. So do you use it for things like artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, blockchain, Internet of Things? Does that resonate with you? How many people does it resonate with? All that I just said. Okay, so half of the half. So I think, sorry for standing, I'm just a professor, so I stand quite a bit when I lecture. But I just wanted to tackle this issue in a different way. All those are absolutely possible. All those things that I just mentioned that are all possible. And just stepping back just a second, in 2007, the United Nations passed a bill saying that equal access to health, school, social, amongst other things, to Indigenous communities. And one of the underlying principles around that was access to digital information. That means equal access to digital information. They weren't talking about cybersecurity. They weren't talking about artificial intelligence. They weren't talking about Internet of Things. They were talking about fundamental access to services, such as diabetes care, renal care. They were talking about getting access to telemedicine, to reducing the cost of traveling from a rural, remote area to the urban area for the Indigenous people. That's what they were talking about. Those are the kind of questions that we should be asking, is that what do we want to do with that information, right? What do we want to do with that technology? Just this morning we were having breakfast with Bill. I asked him, if I gave you a Porsche Formula One car today, what would you do with it? And yeah, you'd be all excited and you'd all, oh my God, this is fantastic, thank you very much. But what would you actually do with it? So this is what bringing internet and broadband is like. It's drinking out of a fire hose. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. But I don't think that we are going beyond that and asking, what exactly are we going to be doing with this? And artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, all those things that I mentioned are far, far, far down the list. We need to scale it back a little bit and bring it back to the fundamentals as to what exactly are we going to be doing with that technology. If we start with that question, then I think the other stuff will fall into place.
Thank you. This question, I guess, could be directed to Jesse next, and we'll pass it on to Wayne afterwards. What role can partnerships with Indigenous organizations and stakeholders play in promoting broadband adoption?
Yeah, there is a lot of different Indigenous organizations, and everyone has different roles and mandates and visions. But for me, I think the connectivity kind of spans all those organizations. Everyone relies on the connectivity in order to deliver the programming, to communicate, to do everything nowadays. I mean, everything kind of relies on that connectivity. So usually what happens when the connectivity goes down, if it's not working to what people's needs are, everyone wants to address it. So all these organizations, all of a sudden they went, okay, how can we make this better? How can we, get internet into our communities working? How can we get our programs working? So the discussion has to happen with all the organizations, right across all the sectors: health, education, tribal councils, public works. There's always people building and doing things in our Indigenous communities. So it's really essential to communicate across these organizations as well as within the communities with the leadership. And that's probably been one of the biggest challenges is maintaining those lines of communications with all these organizations, just because everyone has different expectations, everyone has different backgrounds, but everyone wants to see it working.
Just a second part to that question, Jesse, is what benefit or what's needed to do on the national scale where these organizations exist across Canada, and how we need to work together to make a single voice to advance our issues to get broadband?
Yeah, there's a lot of different national initiatives. There's we've got the First Mile Connectivity Consortium, which is a group of nonprofit ISPs right across Canada, where we meet and discuss our common challenges and solutions, as well as what's needed on a national level, especially at the federal government and the policy level with the CRTC. And then we also have other organizations that may be interested in sharing solutions, networking solutions, all the technical aspects of it. And then those are the two types of organizations that should be kind of that are currently being facilitated nationally.
Thank you, Jesse. Wayne, did you want to comment on what role do First Nations organizations play in supporting broadband and adopting broadband?
My answer may be very brief. I'm just learning this here too at the project that we're involved in. I do have a project team, some of which are here. There's Sherry McCullough, who is our project lead there, and I have Rob Wesley in our IT department. One of the things that I guess we face in the northern communities is, when is it going to get here? I know there's a lot of frustration over the last few years because of the pandemic that happened, and construction stalling because of all the terrain. Like I said, we had very rocky terrains, and which made it more expensive to build and to keep our chiefs updated on what's going on. And you can sometimes sense that there is some anger or frustration with our chiefs, but at the same time, there are some chiefs that were, pushing to move, keep going, and let's not let this bother us. So we have, some for, some against. It comes and goes. And recently, I was talking with one of our chiefs there, who happens to be back from my home community of Matun First Nation. We were sitting there watching hockey, and I was telling him that I'm coming here to sit on a panel. Originally, the CEO for Matawa First Nations was supposed to be here, but due to medical appointments that he wasn't able to attend. So he asked me to come and sit in his replacement, so I'm here. And I was telling the chief about that, and the question was, how do we get leadership excited, or what was that, with the internet? And I was jokingly telling him, I'll grab you by the collar and say, it's coming. But anyway, it's a good thing that I know him, he knows me, and I can joke with him like that. But anyway, I was telling him that this project is kind of like I used to have really nice black hair. Now it's white and thinning. It's been frustrating. It's been exciting at the same time. So, like I said, I'm just getting into this field here, and it's exciting. And back home in the communities, that there's a lot of people that use it for different reasons, and there are a lot of things that we tell them these are possible once we get here. Like the guy said, medical, we can do online what do you call that, diagnosis of different ailments that we all have, such as like what do you call it, brain aneurysm. And we need to do these things as soon as possible, get the people to the proper treatment centers to the south of us. So, and these are the things that we explain to our chiefs, and the other thing too is business ideas out there that our youth can use and implement on their own, and make themselves a little bit of shunya out to the side while they're browsing the net and all that. So there's endless possibilities with getting broadband into our communities, and these are the things that one of the things that we tell our membership is that you can do this, you can do that, and we let them know that there's a lot of things that we can do. When you go to Thunder Bay, you see how fast it is, and this is going to be much more faster once we get our project in place.
Thank you, Wayne.
Yeah, I just wanted to, just a quick word. I just wanted to compliment your chief, by the way. We spoke to him probably about 3-4 months ago on the project that we're working on, and talk about transparency, talk about support, talk about sharing your information, talk about, what can we do to help you. Broadband has been implemented over and over and over again. We don't have to start from scratch. The information is there. It's about sharing information. Sharing is caring. So I just wanted to tell you that you've got an amazing chief, and I wish he would speak at a conference like this to talk about how to start this, how to create that project management, governance, all that stuff. He amazing leader. Just compliment.
I'd just like to talk about the next, just to bring it out in the open. The First Mile Connectivity Consortium did have success over the last couple of years, and we're all part of that organization. Recently, we had AFN sign a resolution in regards to the spectrum, and it kind of involved a chief from my community, to adopt it and to get him engaged. When he found out what was going on, he was quite interested and quite engaged to realize that we could only take it so far, and we need political implication to bring it further. So that's been our, our big story for last year, and I'd just like to get your comments on how that resolution at AFN to advance the ISET spectrum issue, but also the broadband issue, into putting it on a higher priority for chiefs. Bill, if you...
Well, my first thought would be that you definitely need the political support. That's especially working with the government, anything to do with supporting decisions, asking the government to move forward with, has to come from the political leadership, the elected political leadership. Either it be chief and council or appointed, such as AFN, which is the national voice in Canada for First Nations. So it's a definite requirement to have that political voice at the table to help push the issues forward. As for where it is in the steps, having that initial support is a definite requirement. But there's a lot of legwork that goes into, drafting the resolution, the background information, consulting with consultants. My view of consultants are always wrong until proven right. So you have to, you get the advice you talk to everybody, you get everybody's advice, and you figure out what's going to work best, what's the best solution. And every community will have a different solution, depending on what the community's needs are. Which is part of the struggle with the national voice, is because they're putting together one message that's broadly applicable to all the First Nation communities. So to tailor it in such a way that it's applicable to everybody, but there's enough room in there that the individual communities can provide a solution that works for the community.
Thank you, Bill. Jesse, did you want to comment on that, the FMCC and how we need, the national approach is, helpful?
Yeah, I think there should be some national unity on our stance. There's a lot of issues that span right across the country for all treaties and that address our inherent rights as Indigenous people. One of them is spectrum. We've never given up the spectrum as part of our treaty rights, and why can't we use it? And that's going to be a big topic this conference. And, especially when we're at a point where everyone wants cellular or wants to use some sort of wireless spectrum to deliver services. Why do we have to ask for permission to use that? Or why do we have to buy licenses from someone that regulates it, or from a big telco company one of the big three that owns that spectrum, and why do we have to sit and wait for them for their permission to develop our own infrastructure? So that and that's a really big topic, and I'm glad we've got some other people engaging that discussion. So I think a national unified stance on that is very important.
Sharaz, did you want to comment on the approaches to national advocacy? How you see this advancing for First Nations?
Yeah, and working with federal and provincial representatives, they hold a lot of information from all of us, right? All communities, it's funneled into them. And what I've found over the last many years is that when you ask, well, what did that person with that community do? Or can you give me that information? No, we can't due to privacy and so forth. And you are really knocking your head against the wall constantly because you know that information is there. So we spend days and weeks and months trying to navigate that process to get information. As I said just a few minutes ago, this is not rocket science. This broadband fiber has been done over and over and over again. The roadmaps are available, the resources are available, the project management groups are available. Sorry?
Build methods.
Yeah, exactly. Build methods are available. It's about and also when you're talking to the federal groups, it's almost like depending on who you're talking to, they will share some information and they won't. So transparency is number one. It should be number one. It should be advocated by all of us, right, to make sure that that's available to all of us. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. In this industry, in the telecom industry, there's a lot of secrecy, and everyone holds their network infrastructure and their designs and everything close to their chest because that's how they maintain their monopoly. But as Indigenous people, I'm glad we have avenues like this conference to share our solutions, And for us, at KNET, when we've been building our infrastructure in the early years, we always said, oh, yeah, this is how we did it. Do you want to do this in your community? And we facilitated that discussion, and we helped communities beyond our original 6 ownership communities, and we helped them build their infrastructure, build those solutions, including satellite solutions, cellular solutions, some fiber optic, coax, cable, wireless, all these different types, and we just gave it away, and you don't see that a lot in the rest of the industry. Everyone really has a lot of secrecy. There's tons of non-disclosure agreements in this industry, so it's crazy. It's a hard business to get into, but once you're in there, I think we need to share what we know with each other.
I think infrastructure, connectivity is infrastructure, and they should treat it like an essential service, like we all say. When someone builds a road, like when the province builds a road, they should consider telecommunications as part of that infrastructure. What would be your comments? There's an AFN meeting coming up in July in Montreal, and they'll be talking about infrastructure, and I believe connectivity might be on the radar, on the discussion. What would you say to AFN policymaker or the leadership there on what we need to do to prioritize the connectivity issue with the chiefs at this AFN meeting? Bill?
Dig once policy. If you're going to dig a hole, put communication conduit in there. Even if it's empty, it's a plastic pipe. It'll last 100 years, 200 years, or whatever it is. And then you can go later, 5, 10 years down the road, and then you could run fiber optic cable through it. It's just once the infrastructure is there, installing the fiber optic cable in existing infrastructure is simple. They can do 5 kilometers in a morning if the conduit is there already. The major cost for fiber builds is to put the communication infrastructure there. The material cost is minimal. Like a conduit's like $5 a meter. Really good fiber is $10 a meter. You get cheaper fiber for $5 or less than a meter, depending on standards, etc. But you're looking at a material cost of, say, $10 to $15 a meter for material costs, and potentially $30 to $100 a meter for installation. But if you're already building a road at $1,000 a meter for a gravel road, adding $15 a meter for material costs is pennies on the dollar, as opposed to building a road or putting in water infrastructure or sewer or geothermal, and then going back 5 years later to dig it up again to put in communication conduit. If you're going to dig a hole once, put everything in there. Don't put the fiber in yet until you're ready to light it up. But the fiber can be installed later, as long as the communication conduit's there, then you have a nice clean path to install it down the road.
So next, I would invite the Minister of Infrastructure to this conference next time, because the election is coming up, and every time they attend a conference, they want to make this, splash announcements, So I would invite them to speak to the next.
Maybe they're listening. Do you have any comments, Wayne, on the Jesse, on the upcoming Chiefs meeting and then their discussion on infrastructure, on what priorities, for...
Yeah, just to add on to Bill's topic about when you're building infrastructure, it doesn't take much to add on telecommunication onto it. Like, you got the conduit. The other big infrastructure projects that happen or are happening nationally, there's hydro grids being built to our communities. And as part of that, there's fiber optics that are being used on those transmission utility lines that are for the hydro companies. But those could also be used for backbone and transport into your communities. So that's one example of the infrastructure. There's also your local infrastructure. Our communities are expanding, they're building more housing, more subdivisions. Always include that as part of your construction builds. Like Bill was saying, it could be just a simple conduit, or if you're doing more aerial fiber or aerial builds, if there's new hydro poles being put in place, add steel lashing, steel cable where you could attach fiber optic cables or any other kind of cable to that lashing. And then that kind of gives you the future infrastructure to build your fiber infrastructure or any kind of infrastructure on. So that's that. There's also tower infrastructure. So if you're building a tower for something, maybe it's for your radio station, think of what you want to use that tower, what else you could use it for. Maybe you want to add cellular services in the future, but you have to make sure that your tower has a low capacity to handle extra equipment and antennas on it. So if you're going to build something, overbuild it. Add it for future plans. It could be, like for a tower, it could be cellular, or maybe you want like a two-way radio emergency system or something like that. So don't build it to the exact specifications of your project. Maybe just do an overbuild on it for future proofing.
Thank you, Jesse. How we're doing for time? Is there a timekeeper in the audience? We're good? Like, are we finished or? Yeah, okay. We're ready. I think we're all finished. Any more comments, fellas? You're all good? Oh, you want one more comment, Sharaz?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Bill a question. Bill, if a community is in the midst of deciding whether to go fiber or satellite, like call up Elon Musk and I want Starlink, what should they be considering?
Oh, that's a loaded question. So let's say there's a community, 250 homes. In Manitoba, the way the communities are structured, they either follow the road or they follow the waterway. So it's not like a central hub and they span out from there. They're kind of long and narrow. So if you're connecting a community with satellite, there's limitations on the number of connections you could have with a satellite connection. It's using Starlink, for example, it's a one-to-one. It's a direct-to-consumer product. So you have one house, you could have one satellite connection servicing that one house. So you may be limited to, say, 50 Starlink connections in a community that has, say, 250 homes. So now you're asking the community, okay, well, pick which 50 homes that you're going to have internet and which ones are going to be without, which is obviously a difficult situation for a community. In my mind, it would be, well, fiber is the only technology that could provide the bandwidth for future-proof. Once the fiber's in the ground, to increase the bandwidth for the fiber, you just have to change the electronics on either end. When we started our project, we were looking at a 1 gig network to connect all the communities. Now with the electronics, the price points coming down and the electronics getting better, so now we're looking at 10 gig network for the same price when we started with the 1 gig network. I'm sure by the time we get built, it'll be 100 gig network. Just based on the time scales and the way the technology keeps improving. So Clear Sky, our goal has always been to connect communities with fiber. Again, fiber, I use it, I say communication. So it's the communication infrastructure. I don't say the internet infrastructure. Internet is just one of the services that can go over the infrastructure. So, internet, cell, voice, TV, radio, EMR, electronic, other communications. That's just all traffic that goes over the fiber. Internet is one piece of it. So it's a future-proof. The other piece would be our entire network designed to connect all 63 communities in Manitoba. We need 4 strands of fiber. And that's it. You have 1 strand to send data, 1 strand to receive data, and then if the electronics fail on either of those strands, then you have the 2 other strands as backup. So it sends, receives on 2. If something fails, it flips over the other 2. And then you fix the first 2, and then that's it. The cost difference for the material costs to go from 12 strands of fiber to 48 strands of fiber was roughly 10%. So the cost difference was minimal, so we put 48 strands everywhere. The design is, like I said, 4 strands, so we have 44 extra strands available for stuff down the road that we just simply can't anticipate. So it'd be dark fiber that we could, sell to other internet service providers or rent out to, or lease to, like, say, if they have a hospital, they may want a direct fiber connection to the hospital, to other health facilities. That's all, future thinking of stuff that may happen down the road. But once the infrastructure's in, it's in. You just upgrade the electronics on either end, and you have more bandwidth. And even actually on the fiber, they use the lasers to shoot the light on the fiber, and it's just simply different shades of red. So you could have, say, 9 lasers, each different shade of red. So now your 2 strands of fiber become 9 virtual fibers, because each different color is pushing data over the same fiber. So, and there's other technologies that they can add on that to push more data over the fiber.
I think, Bill, we have a question in the audience there.
Is there a question?
Yeah, there is. Sorry.
Yeah.
Good morning. My name's Leonie Rivers. It's not so much a question. I wanted to thank you for your discussion and really appreciate you sharing your project with the rest of us. I work with a group. It's to address the question that was raised earlier on the National Indigenous Cognitivity Inc. I've got a collective of folks that I've been working with to set up a structure to support the advocacy of the work that you're doing in Spectrum. So I'm actually going to have a colleague that's joining us. He's been trying to get in since yesterday. 2 flights canceled out of British Columbia because of the weather here. His name's Andrew Victor. He's from the Chiam First Nation. He's the ex-chief there. And we've been working together to form an organization to have chiefs and business folks and taking a look at all the different awesome projects across the land. And we're trying to consolidate that effort and that message to our national chief and delegates. And we're supposed to be speaking at the July conference, their assembly, special assembly, where Chief Cindy Woodhouse will be doing her 100-day update to all of the chiefs. So hopefully we can chat later. I have some ideas about what I'm hoping to do is learn more from everyone here at the conference and collect your issues and concerns, how we can align the good work that we're doing throughout the different provinces and the regions. So you've got folks that are sitting on this committee right now, like from your area, Manitoba, is this gentleman called Grand Counsel Scotty Harper. From Ontario, you have this gentleman who is Grand Counsel Reg Nekabobi, sorry, pardon me, on his name. And then from Saskatchewan, this gal called Chief Corinne Tasasi. And I think from BC is this Andrew Victor, and then from Alberta we have this gentleman called Ryan Robb, who's been in the business forever, not this specific business, but a business person that can help. And I just want to share that we understand the issue. My past face of our group was a gentleman called Chief, I forgot the name in the smaller group, but this issue's been raised 3 times now at the last 2 years at the AFN, and so I'm hoping that we can have a chat later offline. So that was what I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, definitely sounds great. I know it was myself, Tim, Jesse, I know there's a couple other people here from the First Mile Connectivity Consortium, so we can try to set something up later. And if there's any other, I try not to get in the weeds too much with the technical stuff, but I'm a technical background and I just kind of gravitate there. But if you want to have other discussions, please feel free to reach out. I'm here till Friday.
Is there any other questions? Yep, there's one there.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for sharing all your information with us today. You mentioned a feasibility study. I was just wondering if there's grants or funding out there to initiate those types of studies on First Nations.
The grant funds, you have to obviously apply for them. The requirements change all the time depending on where the grant is coming from. If it's an Indigenous community, there might be grant funds available through Indigenous Service Canada. If there might be federal funds. You always have to try to keep on top of that. For Manitoba, when we did the feasibility study, there was an initial study before the feasibility study. It was, I'm trying to remember the dollar amounts. It was under $100,000 altogether. The feasibility study itself was about $50,000, but the work leading up to that was probably another $50,000. But just to do that work for Manitoba, and it took about 3 months to complete, just that one piece. The whole planning for Manitoba, we spent roughly about $4 million altogether for the technical, legal, and the financial design. I guess maybe just to do a plug for the Tribal Broadband Boot Camp. If you Google it, the Tribal Broadband Boot Camps, they operate in the States. Under there's the 17 steps to create a fiber network. So it just kind of outlines the steps to go through. Which I believe that document will be shared as part of this. I'm not sure. Mark?
Well,
Oh,
I'm just
sorry.
going to add, if you're, we do a lot of the internal fiber connectivity for First Nations. So the First Nations Infrastructure Fund is a fund that's available to communities, First Nations, who could apply directly. And when let's say you want to do a feasibility study, it's covered. So you'll get that money back.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's as an example.
Sorry, what province are you from?
Ontario.
Ontario.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ontario is actually very progressive with connectivity.
Yeah.
And Mark has a comment behind you. I think he has more info.
Thank you.
Yeah, in Ontario, we've used FedNor and ISC for feasibility studies.
A couple of things. One, the 17 steps document is on the ICI's website, so indigenousconnectivity.org. And I'll also say that the Indigenous Connectivity Institute has grants for feasibility studies for communities. So reach out to us and we'll bring you through the process.
Thank you.
That's another point. The feasibility study we did in Manitoba, that was over 10 years ago. So I know the prices have gone up in the last 10 years. So that $50,000, that's a 10-year-old number.
Is there any other questions? I think we're good. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, panelists.
Thanks, Tim.